In 2014, 19-year-old Maura Murray vanished into thin air after her car crashed into a snowbank in Hampshire, New Hampshire. Despite an extensive search, no trace of the teenager was found, and her whereabouts remain a mystery to this day. What happened to her? In today's video, we will be discussing all the theories that could explain what happened to her, so stay tuned for more updates. Hi, I'm here, and now let's get started. Before we discuss the theories surrounding Maura's disappearance, it is important to understand the timeline of events leading up to this tragic case. On February 9, 2014, Maura was a freshman at UMass Amherst, studying nursing, and had plans to become a pediatric nurse. She was described by her family as a caring, bright and creative young woman who loved animals and children. That night she attended a party with friends and stayed until around 11:30 p.m., when she left to return to her dorm. But just hours later, at 12:37 a.m., her roommate received a text message from her saying that she was running late and would be home soon, yet Maura never arrived. Her roommate reported her missing after she did not show up for class or respond to calls and messages. The following day, Maura's family traveled to her dorm where they discovered that her bed had not been slept in and some of her belongings were still there. They searched for her throughout the day, but were unable to locate her. When Maura still did not return home, her father filed a missing persons report. Authorities began investigating and learned that Maura's cell phone had last pinged a tower near her college campus. However, there was no activity on her accounts or any sign of foul play. The investigation yielded no results and her family continued searching for her. But 6 months after she disappeared, the case went cold. On February 11, 2015, a hunter discovered Maura's abandoned 2003 Honda CR-V in a remote area of New Hampshire. It was stuck in a snowbank with its windows covered in ice. Upon further investigation, authorities determined that Maura had crashed intentionally. Investigators found skid marks on the road leading up to the crash site, and Maura's tire tracks were the only ones present. There were no signs of struggle or foul play, nor was there any evidence that the car had been stolen. Inside the vehicle, they found Maura's wallet, keys and clothing, but her backpack and cell phone were missing. The car was towed to a local impound lot, and Maura was still nowhere to be found. Days turned into weeks, and the search for Maura intensified. Friends, family, and volunteers distributed thousands of flyers, knocked on doors and searched wooded areas. Still, there was no sign of Maura. The case went cold once again, and the media's attention shifted elsewhere. But Maura's family refused to give up hope. They hired a private investigator and continued searching, hoping to find answers. 5 years after her disappearance, they held a vigil at the crash site to commemorate her. But even today, her family still holds out hope that she will be found alive. Now that we have established the timeline of events, let us discuss some of the most compelling theories that could explain what happened to Maura. Theory No. 1. Car trouble. One theory is that Maura's disappearance was caused by car trouble. According to this theory, Maura intentionally crashed her car into the snowbank and then fled on foot. This is supported by the fact that her car was found abandoned in a remote location with no sign of struggle or foul play. However, there is no evidence that she had mechanical issues or that she was stranded in the area. Additionally, if she had planned to abandon her car, it's unlikely that she would have left behind her wallet, keys, and other belongings. Furthermore, the area where her car was found was heavily wooded, and there was no evidence that she had walked through the area. Finally, it's unclear why Maura would have crashed her car into a snowbank in the middle of nowhere. If she was trying to get away from something or someone, crashing her car would have made her more vulnerable and easier to capture. Overall, while this theory seems plausible, there are many unanswered questions that make it less likely. Theory No. 2. Foul play. Another theory is that Maura was the victim of foul play. This theory is supported by the fact that her car was found in a remote location, and that she had been reported missing before her car was found. However, there is no evidence of a struggle or that her car had been stolen. Additionally, if someone had kidnapped her, it's unlikely that they would have left her belongings in the car. Furthermore, there were no witnesses to her disappearance, and no suspects have ever been identified. Finally, if her disappearance was linked to her personal life, police have not released any details about possible suspects or motives. Overall, while this theory is always a possibility, it is less likely given the lack of evidence. Theory No. 3. Runaway. A third theory is that Maura ran away. This theory is supported by the fact that Maura had been feeling depressed and anxious before she disappeared. However, there is no evidence that she had planned to run away, or that she had taken any steps to do so. Additionally, if she had intended to run away, it's unlikely that she would have left her belongings in her car. Furthermore, there were no witnesses to her disappearance, and no one has seen her since. Finally, if she had run away, it's likely that she would have used public transportation or a taxi to travel long distances. Overall, while this theory is plausible, there is little evidence to support it. Theory, no. 4. Intoxication. A fourth theory is that Maura's disappearance was the result of intoxication. This theory is supported by the fact that Maura had been drinking before she disappeared, and that her blood alcohol level was above the legal limit for driving. However, there is no evidence that she was intoxicated enough to cause her to crash her car or wander into the woods. Additionally, if she had been too intoxicated to drive, it's unlikely that she would have been able to make it to the crash site. Furthermore, there were no witnesses to her disappearance, and no one has seen her since. Finally, if she had been intoxicated, it's likely that she would have been found passed out somewhere rather than missing completely. Overall, while this theory is possible, it is less likely given the lack of evidence. Theory no. 5. Accidental death. A fifth theory is that Maura's disappearance was the result of an accidental death. This theory is supported by the fact that Maura's car was found in a remote location and that there were no signs of struggle or foul play. However, there is no evidence that Maura died in the car crash, or that she was involved in any other accidents. Additionally, if she had died in the crash, it's unlikely that her body would not have been found during the extensive searches. Furthermore, there were no witnesses to her disappearance, and no one has seen her since. Finally, if she had accidentally died, it's likely that her body would have been found sooner rather than later. Overall, while this theory is possible, it is less likely given the lack of evidence. As you can see, there are several theories regarding what happened to Maura, but none can be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. The case remains open, and investigators are still hoping to one day solve it. What do you think happened to Maura? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And finally, to those who have been asking, yes, there will be a part 2. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe for more content. Have a great day.